Do you have a negative parrot on your shoulder? Now, before you leap to answer that, apparently billions of us do, according to the actress, director, UNESCO ambassador and executive coach, Gila Clara Casus. And she told me that the trick is to only let the metaphorical parrot out at certain moments. More on the negative parrot later. But first, what can business leaders actually learn from theatrical techniques and coaching from artists?
I'm going to give you an example of coaching. I have one CEO who really wanted to rehearse a situation, especially he had with someone in the company who was manipulating him. So he had to play his role in front of me, improvising, you know, this manipulator. He had to play the role of the manipulator. And by playing, and this is what art, especially theater art, is so powerful, it's just that by putting yourself in the shoes of the other, something happened in terms of individual understanding, and here communication become more fluid.
And does it surprise business leaders that you work with that there is something they can learn from theatrical experience and expertise in that corporate communication environment? Does it sort of take them aback? Does it require them to trust you, perhaps?
Well, usually I would say that a leader who really wants to be coached already have a certain level of humility, which means that he considers that he has things to learn, to the point. Then he knows my background because I don't hide anything. And but when it comes to performance, it's really so out of the zone of comfort that sometimes you see them blushing, sometimes you see them shivering, and that's crazy because the body is answering a fear of not self-criticism, and you see the level of perfectionism is extremely high, you know, when you get to this level. But you know what? Hurting themselves for them is less difficult than just being completely open to the unknown of the other.
It's the unfamiliarity.
The unfamiliarity, the vulnerability. And that is wonderful because this is the humanity that is speaking. And that's what I really like, you know, when I'm doing coaching.
So almost the discomfort is useful, it's part of the process.
The discomfort is the door to open.
Okay. And they always go through the door?
They all.
Okay.
Because even for people who really don't feel, and sometimes they want to remain in their own
comfort zone.
And they're playing their own role, and that's fine. And sometimes when they see how I react, and they're like, oh, you really sound like this person. That's weird. You know, because as an actress, I know how to put myself in the skin of anybody. So slowly but surely, they begin to react as if they were reacting in front of the person. And when they say a certain thing, and I react a certain way, I say, stop. Did you see what the word you used created something in me in terms of emotion? Can you rewind and try to find something different? Because again, the first thing I'm saying to my coach, never underestimate the level of mental suffering a person in front of you have in the professional world. Today, we don't know. One word can be pressing a button of madness because it hurts. So that's what I'm always saying, and by rehearsing real life, it will help to get I would say, a better and more respectful communication.
What do you think of the impact on your work, on this coaching work, of technology? We're seeing technological advances everywhere and at an accelerating pace. Does that impinge on the work you do, or no? What I do is human and emotional, it's not about technology.
That's what is very interesting. I always have to deal with expertise and management. You know, and people are hired, they think they're hired. They're hired for what they know to do. And they realize that in fact they are hired to deal with egos and do the kitchen among human relationship, and this one didn't put me in CC. So that's very funny. Sometimes they come crying in my office and they say, how come I have to do this babysitting? How come those people don't know how to handle themselves? This is management.
Yeah.
And in tech, this is, I would say, vital. If you're not a good manager and if you're not losing your time with human connection, well, you will be a good expert, but you will be by yourself. And people forget that alone you go faster, together you go stronger, but you go slower.
And just finally, is there one thing, one element about the people you coach, without naming names of course, that has surprised you, or that you think, this comes up, I've always got to get past this, whatever it may be, suspicion or skepticism, or is there anything you see that feels like this is a recurrent problem amongst executives that we need to solve?
I would say the recurrent problem is this negative parrot that people has in their shoulder, you know, saying always, you're not at the level, it's not good enough, you need to go further. So sometimes it boosts the person and sometimes put this person down with a real negative approach. And usually those people are thinking, okay, I will fail. If I'm not failing, it's gonna be a good surprise. If I'm failing, I was right. So by doing this, they think they're protecting themselves. But by doing this, they really get into this notion of burnout. So what I'm recommending is this notion of optimalism. Optimalism is a combination between optimism and realism.
Right.
So basically, I'm not asking to be positive, you know, completely out of mind and completely out of context of reality, but on the contrary, optimistic and realistic, making in the decision tree one branch that says it might come right. It might happen to be good, in order to be really objective, because especially with what we see in the market, with what we see, you know, in international conflict, if you're not holding on into objectivity, that is also about positive energy, and that's what art is bringing, positive energy. It's going to be tough.
So does that mean you keep the negative parrot, but it's slightly smaller? I mean, because actually a negative parrot is also good for humility. Presumably it keeps you humble, it keeps you rooted. So are you trying to get rid of the parrot altogether? Or?
So what I'm saying is that the parrot can talk to you when you're alone.
Right.
But when you're with someone, and especially when the interaction is at stake, very important, shush the negative parrot, be with the other completely in order to welcome whatever could happen and avoid this very, very frequent behavior that is happy listening. The happy listening is when a person think the other said something and from those fake information get to a certain level of completely not lucidity. I see that very often in negotiation when I'm working with negotiator. Sometimes they come up with data, the other person never mentioned this data. And this is the happy listening phenomenon. And the other person is like, well, where does it come from?
But I didn't say
exactly,
that.
I didn't say that. But sometimes expectations, and negative parrot also, is making us anticipate it because we don't have time. We're thinking about lots of things. And we are just killing the possibility to just get along. So that's what I'm saying. You own your negative parrot, you like to say negative things, okay, stay humble, but don't bother while you are, you know, in communication or while you are in an exchange, don't bother with the other with your own psychotherapy.